Yo, what's up, everybody? Chris Fluke here, Chris Fluke Podcast, episode number 65. You know, this year we're chasing the number 100. We're trying to get up to triple digits. I'm 35 away. I think we can make this happen here as we got seven months to get there. So I had a bit of a crazy week. I took a week off last week. I needed it, man. My mental energy was I was just run down a bit. I scrambled to get my camps organized before I went to Boston the other week. Then I went to Boston. Then when we got back there, we were just kind of playing catch up. We rented a skid steer. We did all this awesome work around the property, which we'll get to in a second. And man, I was just worn out. So I opted out. No podcast. I created a plan for my future podcasts, which involves some good books. And here we are, man. So, you know, like I just said, it was nutty here last week. We had a skid steer. We must have been on this thing. I mean, Marisa was a beast. She was dominating that thing. We mowed our whole property, which is 10 acres. We dug with an auger on that skid steer, like 50 plus fence posts. Basically, the plan is this. We have a 10-acre horse farm. We have a gym in the barn, okay? Right now, we have one path that's totally like a loop here. It's about 2/10 of a mile, all right? From that path, we have the ability to expand and run a course that's about 0.35 miles, so a third of a mile and some change, that all kinds of lead back to the barn. Our goal over time is to connect all these paths. Now, these paths could be used for human beings. Yesterday, one of the horses was being ridden, just kind of walked on the paths. Our daughter, man, Monday morning on Memorial Day, I mean, Emmy and I were out just ripping laps. I mean, we did probably like 7 or 8, and then I had to go to work, and I'm like, Maurice, you got to come out, and we got to switch off here, because Emmy just wanted to keep walking in circles here. I think she probably walked 2 miles before it was 9 a.m. But everything that I envisioned of this trail for what it would be for, you know, for the business, for the horses, for my daughter, like it all got like, you know, we had the trail for 2 or 3 days, and it is everything that I wanted it to be, and I'm happy and kind of proud of that and what we got going on there. So, like I was saying here, man, we had 150 plus tons of stone, man, dumped on this property. And you know what we need? We probably need another 150 to even, you know what? We might need more than 150 to get done what we want to get done. So, like I'm saying, man, I took some time off, and I used this we had an extra day of, you know, I only worked in the morning on Monday due to Memorial Day. And Memorial Day is a great day to kind of reflect on things, right? And I remember I was thinking back, I was a sophomore in high school, 9/11 occurs, and you know, so at that time I'm 15 or 16 years old. So I grew up at this time, like I was of the age that, you know, friends of mine, you know, almost enlisted, or, you know, guys or girls that were a few years older than me, they enlisted. And as I think about Memorial Day, I think about this time when I was working freshman year of college. I was working in this warehouse, and I was basically, you know, a delivery guy of roofing and siding supplies for commercial jobs, like big jobs. I would deliver gutter in a box truck. I would load trucks up for the next day's work, just that type of stuff, some of that kind of behind-the-scenes grunt work for this company. And this one guy was just kind of in a foul mood and was saying something, and I kind of stood up and defended, I don't know what I was defending, but anyway, what it came down to this, he's like, well, if you love him so much, why don't you enlist? And that got me thinking, man, I kind of contemplated that idea and that thought for a little bit, and I never really explored it, and I never went in and signed some paperwork, and I never, you know, even got a hair close to enlisting, right? I never really took that step. I never really had that courage to do so. And, you know, in hindsight now, I spent those years, you know, from age 16 to 22, really trying to figure out life. So on days like Memorial Day, you know, I think about that decision and kind of like, hey, what could have been? Would I be a different person today? The answer would be yes. Or would I be some of those classmates that I had, you know, back at Salkin, where, you know, when I was down in the cemeteries a couple weeks ago visiting my brother, you know, they have a special area for the veterans, and there was guys that I went to school with that, you know, they died in combat. So, you know, you think about that, and meanwhile, here I was as a 16 to 22-year-old, maybe even to a little bit later in life, you know, hemming and hawing my way through life and not really knowing what to do. The reason that I was able to do something like that, the reason that I was able to live, you know, in a country that allows their youth to kind of find their way is because of all the veterans. And on a day like Memorial Day, it's they deserve everything, and then some, we'll say, right? And one big issue that I have with the way that, there's always the internet is a crazy, crazy place, right? So people could celebrate their Memorial Day however you want, but then you have these people out there that they decide, there's this term virtue signaling where people will try to show others how virtuous they are. And, there's a person, for example, that was like trying to tell you, this person was never in the military, but trying to shame you if you had a picnic, say. And you see these posts kind of circling on the internet, and you're just like, hold on now. Because on the flip side of that, there's this guy, Tim Kennedy. He's a veteran. He's maybe even currently enlisted, fought in the UFC a bunch. And he had a long post that was just like, they would want you to be happy. They would want you to have a picnic. They would want you to spend time with loved ones. They would want you to have a day off. And he had this long list of things that they would want for you to have in this country. And they is all those men and women that died in battle, right? Like they fought to give us these freedoms that we can have a day off in remembrance of certain people. And you don't have to feel guilty about it. And the individuals out there that are trying to virtue signal and try to, put you down in an effort to make them look bigger, you need to grow up a little bit, all right? So my rant's over. I give a salute to all the veterans out there. I've got guys that I've wrestled with in high school. I've got women that I know, that I've come across in my adult life, ages, sexes, sizes, all kinds of different people are out there fighting for this country, and we give special thanks to them. Historically speaking, they are the ones that kind of made this country who we are today and gave us the freedoms to do whatever we want to do. Gave me the freedom to put trails on my property so I could walk with my dogs and my daughter. Gave us the freedom to explore any kind of career path we wanted. So special kudos to them, and shame on you virtue signalers for trying to put other people down. Now, getting ready for the summer, man. I got a great thing, and I think I'm going to call. So like I said, we got the trails going out here. I got some young kids coming up. I got a bunch of youth camps here, and I'm like, you know what? We got this trail, 0.2 of a mile. These kids could run a lap, come up, warm up, yada, yada, yada. Well, it turns out some kids can't run a lap comfortably, right? So that was a little bit of an eye-opening experience. So that being said, we got about 5 weeks of camps here on the property, and I got 1 week where I'm traveling somewhere and doing a camp for a sports team, for a youth football team in a different town, right? So, if you're somebody out there that is listening to this, and you're interested in getting your kid, anywhere from 8 to 12, those are what my youth camps are for. If you're 12 and above, we get kind of a little bit more involved with teaching weightlifting and doing some different stuff, right? But, I have some camps coming out here for the 8 to 12-year-olds, right? And I'm looking forward to it. The space is starting to fill up a little bit. I got some great helpers. Steven, who I'm referring to now as my aide de camp, he's kind of like, if I'm the George Washington out here, he's like the Alexander Hamilton. He's my right-hand man. He fills in any kind of gap that there is and makes sure that this business stays afloat, right? And allows me to go out and do some things I want to do, like coach high school football. And then we got a new guy coming in, Ryan, which I got to give him an aid. These are two guys that I used to coach in high school, and I realized, man, these kids were listening, man. They repeat things I told them 5 or 6 years ago. Some of it was like me just being a funny coach, like, you're not a man until you could press your body weight over your head, doing a military press. So, Ryan brought that up a few weeks ago, and I'm like, I guess these kids do remember all the dumb stuff I told them in a joking manner. But anyhow, these are two kids I used to coach, and it's great to have this going on. I'm getting to the age now where my peers that I grew up with, their kids are starting to sign up for my camp, and now kids that I used to coach in high school, they're now in college or out of college, and they're kind of coming back and either lifting weights here or helping me keep this business rocking and rolling. So special thanks to those guys, because all the work that we've been doing out here and cleaning this property up to get ready to try to have an incredible training facility, these guys have been working and sweating like dogs out here. And getting sunburn in one of you guys' cases here, Ryan. Put some sunscreen on, bro. All right, man. Moving on now. What I've been reading a few books. I've read Malcolm Gladwell's The Bomber Mafia. That is going to be a standalone podcast with a few key points that I got out of that one. More recently, I read Zen in the Martial Arts. This one probably will be another standalone podcast, because Zen in the Martial Arts, man, I got this book from a guy that I work with, and I always think, like, this guy was like, hey, I think you'll like this. I'm like, let's see what we got here. Let's see what this guy thinks of me. And it was Zen in the Martial Arts. And I was like, all right, I like this. I like the way that this guy thinks I'm some sort of like, Zen master. But anyhow, it was recommended to me, given to me by, I trained a kid, the guy's son who's in, I think, 8th grade. And I dive into it. It's like 130 pages. And it's written by this guy, Joe Hyams, who was I think he was a writer. ended up working, maybe wrote some scripts, but also wrote for some magazines. And long story short, he gets involved in martial arts, and he ends up working under, I believe, Ed Parker, who I think taught Elvis Presley all of those karate chops that he knew, and also with Bruce Lee and stuff like that. So Joe Hyams, he worked with Bruce Lee, and he has a ton of Bruce Lee stories in here. But one of the things I thought really stood out to me is when you're trying to create new things like this, right? And when I'm coaching kids, or when I'm working with new coaches on this football team, or just really trying to understand something new. You know, Bruce Lee shared a story in this book that was, a karate master gets a cup and begins to fill it, okay? So envision that you have a cup and you just have it under the faucet and it's running. He continues to fill it until it overflows. He then says the cup is full and that no more water will go in. The master tells him that, like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and speculations. You must first empty your mind of past knowledge and old habits so that you will be open to new learning. If we go into things like, I know every aspect of this training principle, or I know every aspect of coaching football, or I played Division I and I know how to do X, Y, and Z, right? If you go into it that way, you're really limiting yourself for long-term growth. We need to kind of, with each day you start anew, basically, and we need to kind of forget everything, and we need to keep an open mind. We still have that stuff in our brain, right? But we need to kind of approach things as if we are this person that knows nothing, right? I remember somebody gave some advice, talk to people as if, try to understand something so much that you could speak to somebody on a 5th grade level. And we need to kind of have the brain, like we need to go into these situations with that kind of a mindset where, pretend you are maybe a 5th grader and you need that person to dummy it down for you, or as you are that young kid and you're trying to figure out which way to go with it, right? I lost my train of thought there. But anyway, you need to go into these situations as if you are one of these young kids, and you're trying to learn something new, trying to learn a new skill. Don't go into these things like you know what you're talking about. Don't fear, like Bruce Lee says, something along the lines of, don't fear the man that can do 1,000 kicks. Fear the man that's practiced one kick 1,000 times. So every day he went into learning that new kick, that same kick. Every day he attacked that kick with all of his effort, all of his will, kept an open mind, tried to improve everything in what he did, and he didn't become bored by it. He didn't try to throw more randomness in his brain. He just focused on that one thing. It's a great thought experiment to think about. Just remember that cup every time you're going in a new situation. Listen to people, hear it out, and don't go in a situation with these preconceived notions, right? So I thought that was a good book. There's a lot of good stuff in there. And you talk about Zen. The first time I heard about Zen probably was in reference to Phil Jackson, the great NBA coach, where they called him the Zen master. And I'm like, what the hell is that? I'm like a 10-year-old kid trying to figure that out. And that kind of mindset and that kind of lifestyle, the way that you would attack certain things mentally, I think it's pretty foolproof. And I think it's probably the way to go, in the sense of trying to just gain control of your the whole system, right? Mind and body. So that was that. We already touched on, there's one more thing too, and as we get going here too with this summer, I forgot to add one thing, guys. We are going to be having some specialized training clinics for lacrosse players, right? With young girls. I have 2 girls that, play lacrosse at a pretty high level, and they're willing to help me out. Basically what we're trying to do is bring up the level of lacrosse play in the area. How are we going to do that? By having these 2 wonderful girls that are tremendous instructors help and teach. And we're trying to mix and match a little bit with maybe a little bit of speed and agility stuff mixed in with some of the lacrosse skills, things of that nature, right? So be on the lookout for that too. I forgot to mention that earlier as I'm scrolling through my weekly word newsletter, which you could find at chrisflook.net. I forgot that I mentioned something there. So moving on now, my fitness tip of the week from this past week. Eat a salad every day. How's that for advice, right? So lately, I've been feeling pretty good doing this, by the way. So in our garden, all of a sudden this lettuce just started sprouting, and we didn't plant it this year. It's from previous year, and it's coming up like crazy. So we have massive amounts of lettuce. And I've been starting to go outside. I've been starting to snip that lettuce. And I have to tell you, there's something about snipping lettuce and doing some gardening. It really makes me feel good. It makes me feel like proud of what I'm about to eat. I imagine hunters have that when they take down an animal and, they know that they got that meat with their hands. Mine, to a lesser extent, I'm just freaking gardening. I'm snipping a plant, right? But anyhow, it makes me feel good to garden. So I want to eat a salad every day. I had this as a plan a couple years ago. eat a huge salad, put as many vegetables in there as possible. You know, you're getting up to that point where you got 7 or 8 vegetables in there. If you get double-digit vegetables in there, you know, and you have that salad before noon, I think you're in pretty good shape for the rest of the day, where you could kind of breathe in a breath of exhalation, and you could know that, hey, if we do go out to eat and I do get something that's not so great, maybe I go out with Emmy and we get a burger and fries somewhere, it's okay. I already had 8 to 10 vegetables earlier in the day. I already had my salad. I could afford to not eat a vegetable here and there if that's the way that life goes, right? So that's number one, right? You end up to check a bunch of boxes. You get a bunch of colorful vegetables in a salad. You check the veggie box off. You know that you ate a good amount of vegetables for that day, all in one meal, right? So then you can move on to the next thing, which would be this. When you're planning your days, right? You know, people spend a lot of time thinking about things. What am I going to wear today? What am I going to eat today? Will I have enough time to do this or that? If we could pencil in a salad every day at lunchtime, say, that's one less decision that you have to make. All you know is that you just have to get up. You have to, if you slice your veggies, fine. You just grab a bunch, throw them in a bowl, go cut your lettuce, and you're good to go. It's one less thing you have to decide, right? Back in the day, I used to just wear nothing but white tees from Hanes, which I think I'm going to probably get back into that habit here as the summer's approaching. And I was consistent. There was no thought process into it. I woke up and I put a white tee on, and then I rolled out the door. I got known to be the white tee guy with the kids that I coach. It became a funny thing. I'm thinking about bringing that style back. So anyhow, eat a salad every day. I think your body's going to like it. If you could get out there and garden yourself, it does something for your mind that is, it's hard to replicate that type of stuff, just being outside and doing some stuff, some productive stuff, right? So I hit 7 veggies. I'm trying to get to 8, 9, 10. If you get to 10, man, thumbs up to you. And that's going to be my goal. Create it like a challenge. You have a competition each week to try to best, or each day, you know, enter each day anew, right? Like we talked about earlier, and try to beat your previous salad vegetable record. Lastly, a quote from the Zen book, right? Nothing is impossible to a willing mind. This is from Books of the Han Dynasty. Not really sure what that is, right? But I just took it out of the Zen book. Basically, nothing is impossible to a willing mind. I think that's a great way to end this thing, man. Because, like they say, if there's a will, there's a way. The only thing that's stopping you from doing the things you want to do is that little thing between your ears, that brain of yours, right? And if we set our sights on a path, and that we put all of our effort into achieving that, and we don't quit, there's a good chance we're going to stumble into it, right? Vince Lombardi once said, you know, there's no such thing as perfection, but when we chase perfection, we'll stumble upon greatness. If you set your sights high and you have that willing mind to pursue something so high, even if you don't reach it, you're still going to stumble upon greatness somewhere along the lines there. And that is the key to being happy over the long haul and being a productive human being. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. This was the Weekly Rewind. Veterans, thank you so much. Those here on earth with us now, and those, you know, in our hearts and in our minds, we love you guys. Happy Memorial Day week. And chrisflook.net to sign up for the Weekly Word, where you get this type of messaging delivered to your inbox every week. You know, just random news and notes, things I've been reading, different thoughts that I've had, all of that stuff. I'll send it to your inbox, right? Also, YouTube page, Chris Flook. Go there, like, subscribe. This is on Apple Podcasts, Google, Stitcher, Spotify. I think I said YouTube already. And the podcast and all this other random little videos I do, they're up there on chrisflook.net. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Peace, everybody.